I began just looking at things and trying to connect. Like, what are the things that make people successful in anything? Like, what are the two, three, five, 10 things that whatever you do, you have to have these things. And what I learned in watching and learning and participating, being a live guinea pig in this research I was doing. I was researching as I was in the middle of it. Right, was that you have to have this insatiable appetite for improvement.
What you get by achieving your goals is not as important as what you become by achieving your goals. In this episode of High Value Discussions, I am thrilled to introduce a beacon of motivation and a testament to the power of transformation. My guest is a standout when it comes to delivering his message on stage, but he's not just any motivational speaker. He's a visionary who empowers individuals to unleash their highest potential, from physical enhancements to emotional resilience and mental clarity. Holding an MBA in finance from the prestigious Santa Clara University, my guest has been at the forefront of innovation, leading startups in Silicon Valley as both a chief financial officer and a vice president of finance. And UC Davis's football field is where he not only showcases athletic prowess, but also learned the discipline, teamwork, and resilience that has become the cornerstone of his teachings. Today, he extends this tailored guidance to individuals, helping them elevate their physical ability to achieve outstanding results. Whether it's improving your physical well-being, navigating the world of finance, enhancing your mental and emotional state, or navigating the path to personal change, his strategies are designed to propel you toward your best self. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Bobby Bluford.
I think ever since I've had a vision, a dream to be remembered, right, and to leave an imprint. I remember, Daniel, going back to when I was, an 8-year-old kid growing up, an army brat, traveling around the world. At a very, very early age, I envisioned myself making an impact with people. And my initial dream, my initial vision was to play football at a high level. But unlike most kids who dream of playing pro sports, I always saw myself in my dream, in my vision, in the off season or after I was done playing, and using the platform of what I had accomplished to talk at a school, to talk to people trying to be the best version of themselves. So I've always seen myself as different, right? And different in a way that I think many of us are too afraid to admit we want to be. Right? We're too afraid to admit that when we go places, we want people to stand up and take notice. And I've never feared wanting that, but I think I'm only beginning to understand that it's okay to want to be remembered. So when I hear that what I'm doing in my life is making a difference, is making a difference in people of all ages, of all backgrounds, it is humbling, but it reassures me that the journey's not done. I'm just starting. So it's fuel for my fire to keep pushing to be better every single day of my life. So
Yeah, I'm so curious on your upbringing. What was little Bobby's upbringing like?
yeah, so I sit with him often,
Yeah.
and in my talks, I actually do a whole build up to a realization that I needed that version of me to go forward. So I grew up, again, my dad was in the Army. So I grew up traveling around the world. I was born in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, went to Italy, Germany, Hawaii, Washington State, New Jersey, Texas, and in California. So a lot of states, a lot of countries, a lot of places. And because I was a military brat, I was oftentimes one of the only black people in my areas, in my schools. So I grew up early in life with identity questions, because I tell the story that everybody around me and everybody of influence and television, all the kids who, all the kids, all the people that the kids I hung out with looked up to, were attracted to, wanted to be like, none of them looked like me, right? All the handsome people in movies and television, they were not young black people. So I grew up with this identity question, identity issue, and then on top of that, I had a stutter. So I realized that um, in my early teens, like 10, 11, 12 years old, 13 years old. And, because of that, I kind of just withdrew uh, my outwardness. So I'm naturally an introverted person because of that. But I say now I have these two alter egos where if I'm on stage or in a sports environment, the superhero part of me can come out. But I'm still Clark Kent. Right? I'm still Bruce Banner. I'm still, Peter Parker. So I found sports early in my life. I found sports, at 8 years old. I really got into it, 8, 9, 10, 11, and found very quickly what a difference that made in me creating and carving out a space for me where I felt safely able to pursue greatness and not be judged. So yeah, over the next probably decade or so, between 10, 11, 12, until I played football in college, I built this identity around grit and toughness that no one could question. Right? I mean, it's sports is kind of black and white. It doesn't matter how you sound or how you look. Whether your parents are divorced, whether your parents are married, with how much money they have, none of that matters. So I built this identity. And the funny thing about it, Daniel, was so after all that, I was done playing football, and I realized, like most athletes, it came to an end, and then had to reinvent myself again. So, and we'll get into that. But going back to school to get my master's, pursuing a finance career, and then starting a fitness business. All these things I was trying to do. I was trying to bring back this feeling I had of just being confident that I had in football. And then I began to speak to people about what I thought was the underlying tenets to greatness, right? So in my building of my fitness business, I began to understand that it was never really, about the tools that I've had to be great. Just like it's not about diet and exercise, it's about mindset, discipline, your social environment, all the things that we don't think about that are more important. So the more I began teaching, the more this whole idea of being afraid, of stuttering, of being different, it all came back to me, and I had to confront that again. And I realized in a moment about 5 or 6 years ago that I couldn't be the best version of me, this version that I've envisioned my whole life of teaching, of mentoring, of motivating. I couldn't be that unless I embraced all of myself and got back to being vulnerable and being honest with myself. And so I literally in my head sat down with a 13-year-old version of Bobby, and I said sorry to him for letting go and ignoring and trying to hide the fact that I was Clark Kent, that I was Peter Parker. And that marked a point in my life where I said, you know what? People need to see vulnerability. They need to see that behind the muscles, behind the apparent arrogance, behind the apparent confidence is somebody who's just like other people, who has a kid inside of them.
Yeah.
That is part of who they are, that wants to come out. So that's kind of my history. And I think that's why people connect with me, because everybody has something about them they don't like or they're trying to hide, right? And when they see me explain how I still have fears, how I still have, anxieties, how I came from this and built this, it gives them freedom to do the same. So
Yeah. And honestly, we relate to this so well because when I was growing up, I was always the lowest in my class, meaning it was very difficult for me to process things. And I was always being in summer school or after school programs because I always needed to catch up. I wasn't very confident in school. I feel like every time I was in a class, I just couldn't understand anything. And every single day of school, it just lowered my confidence every single time. But sports helped me so much. And being a professional fighter, that helped me so much where I was able to work this and challenge this every single day.
Right.
And I'm like, man, what else can I do? Did sports do that for you too, where it made this confidence in you that was just very, very uncommon?
yeah, so that's a great point. And I actually want to get. I don't want to fight anybody. Like for real. Maybe I do at one point. But I want to train combat sports. You know, I do like shadow boxing in my workouts, but none of it's probably correct. But there is a part in sports that I think it makes you face who you are inside, right? I love watching. So I'm a nerd. I mean, and I say it in the nicest way. I say it. To me, it's a term of endearment because I embrace people who have an insatiable appetite for learning and understanding and just like connecting dots. So one of my gifts, I think, is my ability to see things and connect dots. So people who don't necessarily want to learn all the nuances of whatever it is, so it makes sense to them, right? So I like to watch National Geographic, or I have Netflix now. These shows about animals, about predators, right? So there's this show called Predators about apex predators, right? And I love to just watch and relate to like, because people forget that we, like, everything we have now in our world that we think is normal, and it is normal. A podcast, coffee, Starbucks, 8 to 5 work, every single thing that we think is our reality is all new. Like, I use the example in my talks about if you superimposed the existence of humankind on a clock, right? And you take and you put like at the advent of all the things that make modern world what it is, cars, refrigerators, 8 to 5 work weeks, 8 to 5 work days, everything that we think is normal, homes, all these things, civilization. Most of it started post 1800s, right? Most of it really is post 1900s, and everything we have now, phones and things like this, is post 2000. So when you superimpose that on a clock, we have been doing this, living this way for less than a minute of the whole day of our existence. So before all of that, before we had things, we were animals. Like we were animals in terms of we had to live and abide by the same rules that a leopard has to abide by, or a cheetah or a lion, namely procreation and survival. Right? So the fact that you get nervous before a podcast is our brain relating to when it was evolved, when it was running from saber-toothed tigers. Like literally, that's why you get nervous. There's no reason you should be nervous about doing a talk to somebody that currently is not live.
Yeah.
Why should you be nervous? Why should I be nervous watching my favorite sports team and I literally get like sweaty palms watching a game of some? So our brains have found ways to utilize the natural responses that it formulated and built based on the very beginning of mankind. So back to your point, most of us don't get to do that in our lives, right? If you just go through an average day of an average person, you never get to tap into the part of you that was around and existed for 99% of humankind's existence. So I think when you play a sport, especially a combat sport, you get to tap into that part of you that is innate, that's primal, that is part of your DNA. And when you're able to do it regularly, right, you begin to tap into things that your brain was wired to notice, that your brain was wired to see and to digest. And that's why when you do these things, you become more calm, you become more confident, you see things differently, you begin to apply that same energy if you listen to it to other areas of your life. That's why guys who play sports end up going on and doing great things, or girls doing great things, because they've tapped into a part of their DNA that gives them tremendous power, right? That most people, because they don't do that, they don't push themselves to the limit. They don't make themselves afraid of something. And when you do that, it makes you, it literally makes you a different person.
Yeah.
That can do different things. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, and I feel like doing the scary things, because even the only reason why I approached combat sports was because I was never bullied. I was just picked on.
Yeah.
I was just,
Yeah.
like, I was the little guy in the
Yeah.
room always. So I was just
Yeah.
the guy who's getting picked on. So I went into the gym because I was like, you know what? I don't want to get touched anymore. I don't want to get told these names anymore. I want to walk a little bit differently,
Right.
So. And entering combat sports, I ended up doing it. I had no intention of being a professional, not at all, and it just became that way. It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
oh, okay,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
But
Whoa,
but
here
it's
I am.
and it's funny. It taught me that it's like, man, if you can do something so difficult, what else can you accomplish? It's interesting that people just shy away from it,
Yeah.
right? And I know in your talks, the word potential comes out a lot in your speeches when it comes to schools or all these conferences, so on and so forth. But how do people reach their potential, do you think? And what strategies do you try to implement and pass on to people?
Yeah, you hit it on the head, Daniel. It's about discomfort, right? And people say it, I got my own Bobbyisms, but there are isms out there that we all can learn from, right? And the whole thing is, you've heard, you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's true. The problem is in our day and age, you have to seek people, seek opportunities, seek situations that make you uncomfortable, right? You're not naturally going to find those things anymore. When you're younger, you might, right? When you're younger, you do, right? You have tests in school. Your parents ask you questions. You meet, you meet the opposite sex. So you go on dates. All those things force you to be uncomfortable and kind of force you to learn. So you're put in an environment where you have to learn and grow. It's like being a cheetah put into the jungle, and you have to every day you have to survive. You have to be on edge to hunt, to gather, to protect. And then one day they put you in a zoo, and you're getting fed, and you're comfortable, and you don't have to do these things. And our brains are weird because they are wired to protect us, right? Our brains are wired for safety. So it's going to do whatever it can to keep you safe. And the way we process situations tells our brain that we're afraid and that we're in danger. That's really what it is. It's like your brain thinks you're in imminent danger. And so we're designed, our brains are designed to protect ourselves. So if you don't have those things naturally, most people will shy away from that. They'll stick with the comfortable job, the comfortable relationship, all these things. Yet inside they know that they want more. I always say people all the time. I tell them, I say, you get mad at me, and many of my clients, especially in the fitness side, they get mad at me when I bark and I yell. But I tell them that I am speaking on behalf of the voice that was in you, of the person you saw in the mirror. You, we all do. We have these moments where we want to be great. Like, we're designed with dreams of greatness. I mean, ask any 4 or 5-year-old what they want to do. They don't say, I want to just, go get a nice job, 8 to 5 job, pay the bills, be okay in sports, marry somebody who who is kind of cool.
They're reaching
They
for the
all want the
stars.
great. They want to be
Yeah.
president. They want to be doctors. They want to be professional football players. So, and no one told them that. We're born with that, and it never goes away. It never goes away. We hide it. We subdue it. We paralyze it with overeating, over drinking, over sexing, whatever it is. We numb it, but it never goes away. So we need to find people that kick our butt and hold us accountable. And it's hard to do, but the great ones do it. They do it either because behind this person is what I want, right? So I want to be a pro football player. So this coach is mean to me, but behind the coach, behind this particular part of my life is an NFL contract. Or I want to go to law school. So behind this teacher who's pushing me is law school. But beyond that, few of us do that. So I think, the reluctance is that. And I think I encourage people. I say the best thing you can do is surround yourself with people who want to be better than you. And not necessarily at what you do, right? Like, I want to be a better football player than you are a basketball player. I want to be I always tell my wife, I say, look, I want us both to be great parents. Our kids need great parents. But make no mistake about it, I want to be better than you. I do. And I want you to want to be better than me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
Yes.
when you have that dynamic in your friendship groups, in your social groups, in your work groups, it's uncomfortable. But dang, Dan, you're doing another podcast? I got to do a podcast. or Dan, you know what I mean? So I think people don't do that enough.
Yeah.
And once you get away from that and you get in groups where you're all comfortable, then you can't help but degrade who you could be.
Yes.
So I encourage people to not do that.
Yeah, I remember I had an individual who also had a podcast, and he told me straight to my face, he's like, hey, Daniel, I'm coming after your spot. And man, that lit me up. And I come from a competition background.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So that just lit my fire up. I was like, okay.
In a good way,
Yeah, in a good way, right? But did it take time for you to find that specific circle? Because man, I've been in rooms, and my mother always taught me, put yourself in the room, even if you find out there some people that you don't want to be associated with, even if they seem sketchy, go inside the room anyways.
Right.
And I'm starting to realize that too, where there's a lot of people who talk about it, but when it comes to the actions, they're not really about it. And it's a big turnoff for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Me too.
I'm starting to walk into rooms because I have, say, hopes that this is going to be adding to my network, adding to my circle, that I wanted to expand.
Yeah.
And I get really disappointed.
Yeah.
And I get kind of like, grossed out. I got to get out of here.
Right.
But it takes time to build that circle, right?
Yeah.
Was it for
hard.
you?
No, I mean, it's an ongoing process, obviously. And I think here's the key, I think, Daniel, the more you reveal who you are, and the more you reveal what's important to you, and the less you deviate from that, the more people who are like you are drawn to you, right? And what I mean by that is pretty simple. So I got a core friend group that goes back literally 30 years. I got they're all UC Davis teammates of mine, and we do an annual mancation. So we go away for the first week of March Madness, and we get a house and we just hang out. We used to always say we're gonna go do this, do that, and we end up just like hanging out, barbecuing, watching the tournament, and just talking. And now that we're older, and we got kids, we got grown kids, most of us, we just talk about family, and we talk about greatness, chasing still. If you saw us, you would like roaming around Santa Cruz during this weekend in March. You would not think that the least degree we all have is a master's. All of us have a master's degree. One has a PhD, but you would never guess it when you saw us, right? Yeah. But we're all different in what we deem to be greatness. Like I'm the only one that's really still fit. We have one or two that are really into political issues. We have two or three of them that are really into educational issues. We have two or three of us who are entrepreneurial. We have two of the group who are really into corporate growth. So we're all kind of different, but none of us are hesitant to check the others in terms of what they think is not the best reflection of who they are or what they can be, right? So I got into an argument with one of my best friends. I call them my pallbearers because they're not blood brothers, but calling them friends would be way undervaluing them. So I say if I die, they're the ones carrying my casket. They're my pallbearers. And me and one of them got into a fight almost. Like I was like, man, I had to sit up because we were talking about fitness and my how I approach coaching people. And he was just quite. And so his gift is he's intuitive. He questions you. He asks you like, what's your end game? Why do you do it this way? And never he's the least argumentative of us five. But because of that, the others who talk to him, especially me, we get very argumentative because he's so calm, right? But he was getting at the heart of whether or not my approach made sense to who I could become.
Yeah.
So I value those friendships, right? And they are part of what I consider, the right room. So I have a part of my book. It's called The Room Matters. And it talks about just being in the right room, like you were saying. But over time, that room has gotten a little bigger beyond those core people. But the ones who enter it do so after months, maybe years of vetting. And not purposely vetting them, quizzing them or interviewing them, but by way of constant interaction with people and showing them what you value, being honest about it, and then seeing what they value, they then naturally navigate into your room, right, and become part of your circle, your go-to. So there are probably 10 or 15 people that I talk to regularly that understand what's important to me, and there's not always complete overlap of what's important to us. Right? Some of them drink, some of them are single, some of them are on the other side of political stance than I am. So there's not complete overlap, but they understand the part of our relationship that there is overlap. And within that context, we meet and we talk and we help and we support and we push each other. But that room grows organically, and it grows over a long period of time, and it grows forever.
Yeah.
And you just let it happen. You let people who understand who you are, you let it happen naturally. But it's hard. It's hard to go out there and try to find it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's really hard.
And I feel like ever since I've started, say, this podcast, the network has been growing, and I've met some amazing, phenomenal people, brother. And I'm truly blessed for that. Even like yourself, this is the first time we're meeting too. Yeah, so adding somebody like you to the network, bro, is phenomenal. It's something that I cannot complain about. And I think I heard this, a clip of you posting when it comes to your coaching as well. I would say that from the outside view, people would say that as very ruthless. You know what I mean? From like the way you speak or like the screaming, so on and so forth. I would consider that as very, very necessary,
right?
Because the beginning of my fight career, I didn't know this, but I was young. And as I got older, I reflected and I realized this. I was surrounded by a lot of yes men, a lot of yes men. Yeah. And that honestly hindered performance. That hindered growth until I hit a breaking point in my fight career where I lost 2 fights in a row. And I said, man, I need to make a change. Something's not right. And everybody has mentors, people that they go to for guidance. And some of us find the mentor. Yeah. And that's what I did. I found the mentor. And to this day, this man does not pat me on the back for anything that I do. He literally critiques every bit of me. And I like that. Even when I come see him, say, next week or so, it's not yeah, we're having tea, so on and so forth, and catching up. Right. But it's also a lot of challenging conversations.
Oh, yeah.
And I realized that, man. But that's the thing too, what's difficult. People take things in differently.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I realized I take critical critiques. I
Right.
like that. I
Yeah.
don't like the applause. I don't like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
and you, I know we lead the right way. Not the right, I don't want to say the right way, but
Yeah.
we found the way we would like to lead others,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of people that reach out to you and people that you coach, and there's a lot of people that I mentor and like also help and guide. How did your coaching develop through time?
Yeah, it's so funny, man. It's yeah, it's I'll approach that from a few angles. Um, I readily admit a few things. I readily admit that there are several ways to lead and coach. I know that. I know that. I read, I love being around books, right? I love it. I love being in atmospheres like this. So I study leadership more than just about anybody but people know.
Yeah.
Maybe you can't tell because of my demeanor, but I've studied leadership my whole life, like watching people, from generals, Colin Powell, to coaches, male and female. By the way, my favorite coach is Pat Summitt, who's a female coach who passed away a few years ago. And so I get that there are people like Tony Dungy who never curse, who are very calm demeanored. I get that. And I get that there are coaches who are on the other end of the spectrum who yell. I believe part of what we deem leadership I don't know, I know this. Part of it is what we were what we experienced growing up, right, and exposed to. So I was exposed. So my initial coaches that I had, the ones I still admire and love, one I just saw, my high school coach, I just saw him a couple weeks ago. They were of the same demeanor I am. Aggressive, tough, in your face. And so we inherit some of that. And then hopefully over time, we inherit that as our initial idea of what leadership is. And then we hopefully, if we choose to go into leadership, we begin to use some of those things we think are the right way. And then through feedback, right and wrong, good and bad, we hopefully learn and gather more information and tweak that. So I think I've done that. But I'm still rough around the edges. And to be honest, I still prefer to be that way. I always say, look, people, in my fitness classes or my football teams that I coach and train, I say, I don't have to curse, right? I choose to curse. I mean, I choose in this context. That's just how I speak. Now, if I'm I spoke to a Catholic school, right, K-8, 2 weeks ago. I didn't curse. I was still passionate. I was still fun. I still got into them, but I didn't curse.
Yeah.
So I think that's what people don't understand is that I choose that method of coaching. If you choose not to be coached by that, that's your prerogative.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have to do that. You don't have to take it. I get it. Right? But my way works. Yeah. Right? I always tell a story of my wife and I. We used to take our separate kids to work, to carpool, and then we'd meet somewhere on Thursday nights for dinner, and she knew the area better, so she would tell me how to get there. I would be, a typical husband, go my own way, but I would still get there. Right? And so my story is I know this gets me there. So maybe you have a different route. Hopefully you still, but I know this gets me there. But I think I prefer to do it that way because to me, going back to the idea about what we're ingrained to do as human beings, I believe there's a fight that must be had between the best version of you and the current version of you. And it's too scary to not have a corner man that tells you that you need to go in there and hit that mother effer in the mouth. Mm-hmm. And in the moment that you say, I don't want to fight, which will happen in a workout, in a study session, in a practice, it's my job as your corner man to say, hey, Get your ass in there and hit that food in the mouth. Hit that test in the mouth. Hit that discussion you got to have with your daughter. Hit it in the mouth. Go in there and fight it. And I don't have time in the middle of a workout or a practice or a counseling session or a life coaching session. We don't have time to sit here and delineate about the best method, the best way, and do all these things, because that thing is staring right in us in the face, and we got to go fight it. Yeah. And I believe I do that part as good as anybody. It's getting you to understand that it's a fight you can win. It's a fight you have to win. And more importantly, it's a fight you have to take on right now, win or lose. Yeah. So, so I'm good at that. I embrace it. I think that for the most part, it's allowed me to connect with people and get results in whatever it is, not just physical fitness, but in a lot of things. I'll do coaching calls with people about careers. And I left the house today. My wife was on the phone with a friend getting ready for an interview. I said, "Look, man, y'all done talking. Like, go do what you do, man. Like stop being afraid. Go in there. That company needs you as much as you need it. Stop going there acting like, oh my God, I'll be lucky to have a job here. No, they need you. Go in there and show them fools that they need you. So that is aggression. I think I probably cursed.
It's all good.
But that's aggression, right? That's aggression. So could I have done it more lovingly? Maybe. But I think there's certain times when our brain needs to understand that we are in a corner, and you can't talk your way out of it. Yeah, you got to fight your way out of it. So that's the role that I enjoy playing. Now I go back, and I think anybody who stayed around with me long enough understands this. I say I love you to everybody I coach, everybody I train, everybody I teach. Oftentimes after I've F-bombed them, but. I care about people, but I care about them enough. Like you were saying, I care about you enough for you not to like me. And many parents, many teachers, many coaches aren't willing to have their daughter or their child or their kid roll their eyes at them, but they'd rather have the comfort of not having an argument with my kid rather than say, you know what, my son needs me to be a jerk right now. Yeah. Right, I would rather us hang out and watch the game, but right now he needs me to be stern. He won't like it. He's going to be mad at me for 2 days. I'm willing to do that. I love you that much. I'm willing for you to freaking be mad at me. Yeah. And that's real love. That's real care. That's real coaching. That's real parenting. That's real leadership, in my opinion. So that's who I am, man.
And if you honestly look at any great, if you were because I know you study people, what's probably say particular an athlete? What's probably the number one athlete that you can think about right now? Just name that one athlete.
Tom Brady, man.
Okay. Tom Brady.
Michael Jordan.
He deals, I'm sure, with a lot of difficulty. He gets pushed and he pushes himself, right? So that's why you kind of go back to there's certain amount of people who have it in them as well, but they also have coaches, not a coach, coaches that are always putting that stuff in their ear. So man, and I think in order to be great, you need that extra push.
You have to have it.
That's the question.
We always stop at the first sign of discomfort. All of us do. All of us, even me, right? Now, Coach Bobby in my ear is similar to Coach Bobby that these people see. They don't understand that. I say I tell myself the same thing I tell you guys. Yeah. Right? And the problem is, right? People don't understand. I always say, I'm not an okay coach. Right? Well, if you say, I don't want to work out today, and I say, oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel sick. I can't do that. Okay. I'm not that coach. I'm going to ask you and push you because if we allow all of us, if we allow the excuses and to our brain, to our dream of greatness. There is no difference between an excuse and a reason. It's black and white. Either you did it or you didn't. Right? Now, having a child who's sick that you have to leave the workout for, that is a real reason. Yeah. I get it. I have kids, right? As opposed to, oh, my job called. I got to finish this report. I couldn't wait 10 minutes. Those are different. But to the workout, it's the same, right? If I always try to make these examples across platforms. If I am late to my son's basketball game because there was an accident on the freeway and I missed his game-winning free throw, or I was at the office and I forgot. I was working and I forgot. I left late. Doesn't matter. I missed a free throw that won the game that I can't get back. So I'm never going to be a coach that accepts anything. You got to prove to me you can't do it, and then prove to yourself you can't do it. And what happens is you begin to have, I call them rules and standards in my book, right? You have to have rules for yourself, right? When I was writing my book, I said I got to write 500 words every single day. That's the rule, right? So if I don't do the rule, the reason's irrelevant. I have a rule that I don't go more than 3 days without working out since 1990. Not more than 3. I've been married, vacation, honeymoons. I had surgery a month and a half ago for the first time. I have not missed more than 3 days since August 15th, 1990. That's my rule. That's my rule. So when you have these rules, you begin to set standards for yourself, right? And then when you do that, you don't let anything get in the way, reasons or excuses. So part of the problem we do in life is we don't have these reasons and excuses. So a good coach, people around you, will help you set those standards and those rules, right? It's like, unless I'm dying, like I always say, if someone tells you, Coach Bobby ain't worked out in four days, send flowers, man, and start a GoFundMe page for my kids because something has happened to me.
Yeah.
I'm serious. So we have to have people around us that, until we can do it ourselves, that make us do it.
Yeah.
Right? You can't just miss practice because.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You have a podcast on Thursdays. You can't just it's not some Thursdays. It's Thursdays.
Yes.
Right? And regardless, right? And unless until you can do it yourself, unless a coach makes you do those things, right? Sit you down and say, "What do you want to do, Daniel? I want to do this. All right. I'm gonna call you on Thursday. You better have somebody in your freaking studio. I promise, because you told me that." And so I would say, "You told me you wanted to lose 20 pounds.
Yeah.
I told you what it was gonna cost you in terms of burpees and push-ups. You said it was okay. So now I'm holding you accountable to that. You didn't say just push me when I feel good.
Yeah.
Just push me when I don't have a headache. Just push me when my kids aren't. No, you said push you when you're not doing it. So I'm doing that. And most people, if they're honest, they need that. Most people, if they're honest, don't accept that or find that often enough. So they end up staying where they are.
How do you personally react when somebody keeps reaching out to you, whether it be week by week, quarter by quarter, and it's usually the same topic and they never execute on it?
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? Because me personally, my response is always the same. You don't want to be great.
Yeah, that's what I say.
That's it.
Yeah, that's what I say. I mean, so that's so good. That's so good. So in my book, and we'll do a podcast again.
Oh, please. Oh, you're coming on multiple times, brother.
I'll have my book by then, hopefully. But I got 5 steps to greatness, right? And step 1 is want. And in my book, I talk about what each step is, and then I give like a story behind it and lesson, and then I provide research and reasoning, and then I do like some work to do. And I explain, this is very important, I explain how the world works, right? So I use some law of attraction, I use some spirituality, but mostly like real science, right? Quantum physics, law of attraction. But I say, part of what I thought the reason was to have to want something. Everyone says that you gotta want it. All these things that we say that are cliche. But when you want something, for whatever the reason, right? And you wake up and you just like, man, I gotta lose weight, or I gotta be a fighter, or I gotta play football. It makes going through the last sprint or the last hour of studying, it makes it easier because you want it so bad, you can taste it, right? But I say to people all the time, I say that wanting something is not the same as not wanting it. And people say, I know, double negative. And I used the example of if I said, raise your hand if you do not want to lose 20 pounds. Raise your hand if you don't want to be ripped. Raise your hand, all the boxers here, raise your hand if you don't want to be a world champion. Raise your hand if you don't want to get an A on this test, raise your hand. Nobody would do that. And no one not wants to get an A, right? But that's not the same as wanting an A. Right? So you are dead on, Daniel, because in this day and age, especially, right? So step 2 is belief. So those two, so the 2 steps in my 5 steps that are foundational are step 1 and 2, want and believe. So belief sometimes gets in the way, right? So oftentimes if you told me a year ago that you wanted to be a better football player or a better basketball player, or you wanted to have a book done, or you wanted to start a podcast or lose weight, and 18 months have passed and you have not made significant ground on that, then number 1, you don't want it, or number 2, you don't believe it. It's that simple. Yeah. It's that simple. And you can fight with me all you want. Oh, but I do want to lose weight. It's hard. You don't want it or you don't believe it because it's impossible. Because if it's not hard to lose weight. Is it challenging? Is it uncomfortable? Does it require a lot of work? Maybe yes, but you can find, without paying any money on anything, on equipment, on meal prep programs, you could do no spending of money. Go on YouTube, go find books in the library. You could find what you need to lose weight in 18 to 24 months. It's really that simple. So it comes down to whether you want it. And the one chapter is long because oftentimes we don't understand what that means, right? So I talk about, there's a few levels to it. Number 1 is, are there competing ones? I call it the present value of pleasure, right? So we all want to lose. We all want to be fit. All of us, dude. All of us do. Not one person doesn't want to look. Now maybe you don't want to be ripped.
Yeah.
Or you don't want to be like a model, but we all have an image in our head of what we want, and most of us are not there. Most of us, which is okay. So we want this picture in our head, right? We pass by the mirror, we don't like the way this dress fits or whatever. So we all want that, right? The problem is, we also want to sleep in. We also want hamburgers, and I use like and want interchangeably in my book because to your brain it's the same thing. If you like fries, your brain thinks you want fries. Mm-hmm. If you like sleeping in, your brain thinks you want it. So it's the same thing. So what happens is we have to be willing to exchange our current pleasures for the delayed, big value pleasure that we want. And we do it all the time. We do it with savings, like we're saving to go to Hawaii or buy those shoes we want. We'll bypass Starbucks for 2 months. We'll bypass buying the candy at school for 2 months. So we understand conceptually how to bypass current pleasures for long pleasures. But at the end of the day, you don't want that big pleasure big enough, right? And that's okay. Just stop lying to yourself. I would say, look, be mad at me all you want, right? Like, I talk trash in my workout. I say, yeah, I'm 52. Be mad at me all you want. The bottom line is I like hamburgers the same way you do. Yeah. I really do. I love pizza the same way you do.
Yes.
The difference is I want to take my shirt off still. Yes. And it sounds corny, but I want to do that more.
The corny stuff works.
More than I want hamburgers. Right? So maybe you don't want to take your shirt off. That's okay. But because of that, you won't be fit. You won't have a shirt off body because you don't want to take your shirt off. And that's okay. But until you fix that.
Yeah.
Right? So I didn't grow up wanting to be a multimillionaire for a lot of reasons. I just never was fixated on money.
Yeah.
So for that reason, guess what? I'm not a multimillionaire. Because you don't want it, Bobby? Yeah. So now I'm trying to fix my brain in ways that make that not just okay, but make that part of me connected to what I really want, which is to be an impact. So I got to connect the things that my brain doesn't naturally want, like being a millionaire, making a lot of money, with the things that I really do want, which is impacting people. So until I do that naturally in my brain and create manifestation and create the right energy levels for law of attraction to work, it won't happen. So you're right, man. It's like people, and they'll go through the same motions over, back to your original point, over and over again. I got people in my class, it's like, you still can't do 15 burpees after 2, 3, 5 years in a row? You don't want to, and that's okay. But just be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
It's the same way you ain't built, and my business, and I learned a lot of these lessons that I teach now by way of the last part, the most recent part of my life, which was my fitness business and my speaking business. I learned how important these steps are by way of them not working in these, because football was a success, finance was a success. You know, I think I'm a pretty good father and husband, but I was struggling to grow like my fitness business and my speaking business. So the want and belief part are integral in the growth there, because I didn't see myself with like 5 gyms and overseeing it and like, you know, and franchising it. And I saw myself as the person changing lives in the boot camp, as the person at the high school changing lives on the football field, in the auditorium. And that part of my vision was not scalable financially. I can't be the person in every, I was wearing, and initially I saw myself as participating in all the dang classes, right? So that's not scalable. But when I realized I don't really want to just be like this guy who drives around to my locations and walks into the general manager, how are sales today? How, you know, hey guys, I didn't see myself and don't see myself as that kind of person. So I got to reinvent in my head what that looks like. So people are under this impression that they can just lose weight without seeing what that looks like and what it requires. Yeah. So they go through the motions, like you were saying, over and over again. They'll call you, hey, Daniel, I'm trying to lose weight. What can I do? What do you mean? I sent you like 18 workouts, bro, and 18 diet plans, right? You got to change what you see yourself. You got to change how you see yourself. What are you wearing in 18 months? Yeah. Right. When you walk through the mall, who's looking at you? I don't do that. Well, how can you have a vision of how to get through this workout if that part of it hasn't been finalized in your brain? Yeah. Right? So, yeah, that's how I deal with it. I tell them, look, you're not dealing with the right sciences. Yeah. Like you're thinking that this impact in your physique is about, you know, anatomy, kinesiology, physiology, biology, chemistry. It's not. It's about sociology and psychology. How you think about what you want and who the heck you're hanging out with.
And I think that's like also correlates to business, right?
It totally does.
People think that if I start a business page on Instagram, I have a business. But what are the requirements to be able to have that business live? And even in your experience as well, when it comes to like all the business and in finance as well, you were in your football career, right? And then after the football career, you jumped into the whole finance sector. Right. Was that purposeful, or was there any meaning behind it? Is that something that you intentionally wanted to do?
No, man. So it's funny. I'm actually interviewing now just to get back into finance. My kids are out of the house, soon to be, and I miss spreadsheets. I miss kind of like using that side of my brain more. So even if it's consulting, I kind of want to get back into to being a nerd. more actively being a nerd. But so yeah, after I finished playing football in college, I started my first company. So I started a company called Next Level with those same guys that I talked about. And we, the premise of it was to provide, again, my vision has always been impact, touching lives, especially young lives. So we started a company called Next Level that helps student athletes go to college and play sports, in just as a general umbrella. And there was 3 prongs to it. There was academic counseling, there was training, physical training, and then there was this recruiting piece where we built a database and we connected athletes to coaches. One of the very first companies to do that. Now it's pretty prevalent, with these recruiting services, but we were one of the first ones to have the idea. So I did that for a little bit, for several years, and we were all young, 20, 22, 20, 23. We started it, and we probably disbanded in our late 20s. So for several years, we were trying to build this company, and I was flying around trying to raise money. This is before you were born, I think. Yeah, pretty sure.
I'm 95. I'm born 95.
Yeah. So no. So this is right when you were born, right? So I finished at Davis in 95. So this is late 90s, right? And late 90s was the dot-com boom.
Oh yeah.
So literally, people were getting money from investors off of any idea around technology on a napkin, right? So I flew around the country. I went to New Mexico, talked to some investors. I met with Ronnie Lott from the Niners. I met with people in Silicon Valley, just trying to raise money, and I couldn't do it. So my partly unfounded, but I think part of it was true. My belief was it was because we were all minorities and young. It's probably due more because we were young, inexperienced, no traction yet really in our business. But I just thought maybe a big part of it was that we were African American, Hispanic. One of the guys that I started with is a Jewish, white Jewish guy who thinks he's more black than I am. That's my boy though. That's my boy. But we're all just young and kind of just minorities. So I went back to school to get my MBA in finance. The reason was just to have more credibility for our team. And so I went back to Santa Clara. I was working full time, had this business that we started, and then now I'm trying to go to school. So I wasn't in a rush. I just knew that I needed to have somebody on our team, mainly the CEO, the founder, which was me. So I did it for that reason. So I was going to school, and then in that midst, I got married. We got married. My wife and I had our first child, and I was like, man, I got to hurry up and get done with school because it's just too much to work, to have a kid and to go to school. So I finished it up. And just by happenstance, this guy that I've known since when I first finished college had a friend who started a company and wanted a finance person to help. And I had just finished my MBA. He recommended that we meet, and I initially started as just like his bookkeeper, and very quickly took over, became the controller, and then helped get the company acquired. And then just before I could think about it, I applied for other positions after that as a senior finance person for the first time, and got hired as a I think I was initially a controller, but within months I was the VP of finance for another startup. And so I spent 10 years at startup companies as a senior finance executive by accident. But once I decided to do it, as my book talks about, I quickly just shifted my dream was just like, boom, I'm going to be the best CFO ever. I'm going to be the best CFO ever. So I would imagine myself in suits and ties and giving presentations to boards and just running, the financial operations and understanding spreadsheets. And so I just quickly evolved into like this dream of learning how to do all that. So I got into it by accident, but once my brain shifted into what this dream was going to be, I quickly adhered to my steps. I wanted it really bad. I wanted to be like, and again, the end goal never changed. I still saw myself as using that as a platform to go back to schools, to teach young people, especially minority young people. Yeah. Like, look, man, I got earrings on, I got a suit and tie, I'm running the show in a startup. I'm 20, 29, 20, 30 years old. I'm running the show at a startup company, so you can do it, right? So I still saw that as my vision as I was doing it, and I just stayed with that until, God. I would say God has a way of just switching, pivoting you. So after the last one got acquired, I had begun doing like these lunchtime fitness boot camps um, at the office. Like go in the parking lot, I would rope off area, and literally people from my company and neighboring companies would come out and work out with Bobby.
Yeah.
So, oh, did they hire you to? I'm on, no, I'm the CFO for this company over here. Really? I'm on, yeah. So when I was done, when that company got acquired, I was like, man, I ain't going back to. I can't do that right now. So I pivoted into the fitness world. It's funny because people who know me in any of those worlds, um, they trip out when they figure out or find out that I was a CFO. Or if I'm a CFO, they're like, man, oh, you went into fitness, really? I'm like, yeah. So so yeah, I got into that. I say by accident, but I think that if we honor our journeys, the universe and God kind of tells you, what is next. So I don't think it was by accident. I think I had to learn certain things in that journey. My kids and my wife needed something from me that position in my life allowed me to be to them. And then when it was time for a new version of me, um, things aligned. And so I approached that thing the same way.
Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of by accident.
And then going back to that experience with having your MBA in finance and being around all these startups and entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
what are some of the principles that you take into all your ventures from all those past experiences?
So great question. So again, I've always been somebody who looked at things um, with a very curious eye and ear. And I began writing a blog um, at my last company I was a CFO at. And so the last posts are still up. So BobbyBluford.com is my original blog. CoachBobbyBluford.com is my new site. But I began just looking at things and trying to connect, like, what are the things that make people successful in anything? Like, what are the 2, 3, 5, 10 things that whatever you do, you have to have these things? And what I learned in watching and learning and participating, being a live guinea pig in this research I was doing. I was researching as I was in the middle of it, right? Was that you have to have this insatiable appetite for improvement in life, and startups are embedded with the DNA of people who have that, right? Today's age, with the advent of technology, more people can have a startup, right? Quote unquote startup, more quickly. Whether it's a podcast, whether it's a YouTube channel, whatever it is, the ability to create what was a startup 20 years ago, what was a business 50 years ago, is much easier to do. But the successful ones are not driven by the product or the idea or the service. They're driven by an insatiable appetite to figure out what the world needs, what I can do, and how those two intersect. Right? So I watched, the first company I was a CFO at or controller was just a hosting company. And the second one was a front-facing print products company. And then I was around people who started gyms when I built my gym and my fitness program. And all of them had the same thing. They're all like, it's not about the fitness or the software or the technology platform. It's about just this unquenchable desire to learn and grow. And when you have that, you find ways to make it work. You find ways to tweak the product or service. But that's the starting point. And then once you get past that, right, That's the first step that everyone who's great has to have. Michael Jordan never stopped trying to be better. Tom Brady was finding new quarterback coaches in his 18th year, right? Leaders are never saying they're leaders. They're always like trying to find other leaders to lean on, right? They'll fly down to Coach K from Duke and learn how he does things, even though they have success in their own business. And then the next step after you have this desire just to continue learning is you have this honoring of the moment, right? It's the same thing that made me nervous to come here. Not that I could do another podcast next week and fix whatever I did wrong here. Not that this is just a play for me to network, right? It's the fact that everywhere I go, I want to make sure that I'm honoring the gifts I've been given and honoring the opportunity to share and intersect with the gifts somebody else has been given, right? So the great companies I've been with, the great teams I've been a part of, coaching or playing, everyone does that. They have an insatiable desire to learn and grow. All of them do. It's embedded in the organization. And then each person has this honor about the moment. I'm going to treat this practice with honor. I'm going to treat you as my co-worker with honor. So once those two things are in place, anything can win. Individually, you can win. As a company, you can win. As a team or a family, you can win. Everyone's trying to grow in their own piece. And then everyone's trying to figure out in the moment, how can I honor myself and honor you as my co-participant in this journey? If you do those two things, the rest of the stuff takes care of itself, man.
You saw success within those companies and businesses and entrepreneurs, but what makes them fail?
Oh, it's the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Right? Because what happens is, and that's a great question, Daniel, because I talk about that all the time, whether it's an individual, right? A football player, for example. You see a football player, he's 12, or a basketball player, she's 8, and she's dominating. And you begin to, as a parent or a coach, you begin to focus on the tangible things that you can see, right? Or a kid who does well in math at an earlier age than Daniel did, right? This kid is understands math, right? So we focus on the tangible stuff, right? So we begin to require that this person be less inquisitive, right? Take that same idea to a company, right? A company might be lucky enough to be in the right part of history, right, where this product or this idea just happens to be needed, but yet there's no desire to really understand why it's needed or how we can improve it or what's next, right? Apple had that. They had the idea, but they also had the idea of what's next and could reinvent. That's why they succeeded, right? Many companies had better computers. Many companies had better ideas initially, better technology, right? But they stuck with that. So the ones who don't have that curiosity about greatness, and curiosity makes you humble because you understand what you don't know.
Oh.
You know what I mean? I mean, the thing about greatness seekers, you could tell who wants to be great in the room because normally they're the ones who are great, but are the ones who don't accept it. Yeah. Right? I was asked a question about my rating, like what would you rate yourself in Microsoft Excel? And I said, that's a tricky question because I'm really, really good at Excel. Right? But there are 450 functions in Excel. The average person probably uses 10 of them. I have used and use regularly probably 25 of them, 50. So most people consider me an expert, but because I know and I'm curious about the ability of this software, I understand how powerful it is. I'm an 8 probably. Right? But I would never tell you an 8 because you don't understand what's behind it. I would tell you I'm a 10 from your perspective, but from my perspective, I'm an 8. right? So most people don't get that, right? And so they stay where they are. They don't ask questions. They don't grow, and they assume that where they are is great. And so the ones who fail, like they don't see themselves because they're not humbled by the fact that I'm a great football player, right now. But there are many, many great football players in America that are in 5 years from now vying for the same scholarship I want. So they stop being curious about their growth, and then they don't. And then from that naturally extends to now I'm not honoring every moment. Right, and those two things make the companies fail.
Yeah.
They're not curious about how to get better. They're having, Friday bashes every Friday because they're celebrating how good they're doing, which is okay. You want to celebrate wins, but the ones who failed were not curious about. Okay, that's good. Let's celebrate it. But what's next? And then because of that, they began to honor the journey and the moment less and less and less. And before you know it, their advantage was reduced and ultimately overcame by companies who shared those first two tenets. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's funny. I forgot who said this. Curiosity is what killed the cat.
Yeah.
I think that is a very false statement, in my opinion. And one of the
agree.
reasons why I started
Totally
this
agree.
podcast specifically is because I love to sit next to people who are 10x better than me. Why we're surrounded by so many books is because I am curious. Every time I open a book and flip that page, I'm like, dang, I didn't know that. What else don't I know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, brother, curiosity wins. I wake up every single day. I'm like, man, I know nothing and I'm here to learn, period.
Yep.
But that's true, man. Like when the entrepreneurs think they have this success, they touch success.
Right.
And once they're good, like, you know what? I'm good. I got the car. I got the girls. I got the buildings. I'm good.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where you crumble.
Yeah.
And
agree.
you've seen that firsthand.
I've seen it. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. And I think because, many people in our world, they lose sight of the reason they want things, right? Because we all want nice things. We want cars, we want houses, we want purses and shoes and things. But usually that originated from something that was wholesome, right? I wanna prove to my neighborhood that a Latina woman can make it, or I want to prove to myself that I can overcome adversity, or I want to make a difference in my community, whatever it is. And when you as you progress, you naturally have to pay bills, and then you begin to equate like what you want with how that can make money, and then the making the money part at some point for too many people becomes the end goal, and we forget what originally made our hearts pump. Like plastic and rubber and windshields doesn't make our heart pump, right? It's how we got it, right? That's why I always say if I won the lottery, I'm not sure I would. I mean, I would spend it, of course, but it wouldn't feel good to me. And people, oh, you're lying. I'm being. Anybody who knows me knows I'm being completely honest. The same reason that I get offended when people say, "Do you take steroids?" Right? It's not that it discounts my work, which is part of it, right? But to me, what makes manifesting greatness enjoyable is understanding what you paid for it. You know what I mean? Like if I didn't pay for it, then why am I prideful of it? So it's like this whole notion that I just want to get a car or I just want to get a house is losing sight of, again, I believe everybody initially has this desire to make a difference or fulfill some dream they have inside of themselves. And then somewhere along the way, it gets replaced by just showing that you've made your dream come alive via tangible things, right? But I believe that we do that in order to just, again, quiet that voice in our heart that says, look, you want to make a difference in the world. You want to be a princess or a president or a doctor. And yes, now you have the things that a doctor would have, even if it's not being a doctor. You have the car that would have been a manifestation of being a doctor, but you don't have what would have come with it. Like the car would have just been a badge that proved to yourself in the world that you made changes in the world. That was in your heart of hearts. That was just proof to the world that you made an impact. Now you have the proof without the impact. And that's why people who get those things by way of things other than fulfilling their purpose in life end up being depressed, end up being suicidal, end up being divorced and unhappy because they got those things, yes, but they wanted to get those things by way of the purpose they felt they were here to do. And when you deny yourself that, you cannot be fulfilled. So you're right. Curiosity has to be part of what makes you grow, because it is what's going to help you fulfill that part of you that when you're on your deathbed, you're like, man, okay, yeah, I did what I was put here to do. And if you don't do that, no amount of money, no car, no coat or shoes or purse is going to replace what you did not fulfill.
It's weird, man. Like even the whole steroid thing too. Since I come from a fighting background, when we found that there were fighters on steroids,
Right.
they were cheaters.
Yeah.
So when I see a bodybuilder who's like can't even walk inside a room, I
Right.
don't value that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I value me sacrificing, eating correctly, sleeping correctly, having the best environment,
Right.
managing my stress.
Right.
That's what I value.
Right.
If I'm just getting all sauced up on gear, I'm not valuing this, man.
No. And why would you? Like I always say, what do you want people? What do you want people to get from seeing your body or seeing your diploma, right? Because you could go to Staples and get like some fancy paper and go online and find some like template to create a UC Davis degree or Santa Clara MBA certificate. And a person could come in here and see that and have an impression of who I am based on that. But what do you want them to see from that? Do you want them to see that you have a piece of paper with maroon colored print on it?
Yeah.
Or do you want them to equate that to an image of them seeing you work your butt off to get it?
Yeah.
And so I want the latter of those things. I want people to understand that I have done something that few people can do.
Yeah.
And that's dedicate myself physically, emotionally, mentally to maintaining my physique for 40 years, 35 years, right? And I don't want that. So if anything's going to take away from that impression, namely steroids, I don't want it, right? If I have my car in my driveway, my new Bentley, right? And I step onto a stage with a brand new suit, I want the impression to be that guy with the earrings, who looks like he's 40, but he's 55, and he speaks articulately, even though he stutters. I want everything he has to reflect how hard he's pushed through. Not that he won the lottery. It's the same car, same suit. Well, I want the impression to be that guy embodies what I want to become.
Discipline.
I want to become somebody who can work and push and fight through adversity and be the best version of themselves and make their dream, whatever it is, alive. I want to be that. Not somebody who can play the lottery and win, right? So it's like, I mean, we have to want things that are hard, then do what's required so that we can enjoy it. And our soul and spirit knows. Like, you can lay in bed, and I have friends who have been like, the first 10 people at these companies that go public end up being multimillionaires. And many of them I talk to, like, they lay in bed and they're empty because they weren't lucky. They still worked, but they understand that part of it was just timing and part of it wasn't them. Right now, employee 1, 2, and 3, the stars of the company, the guys who started the company, those guys might feel more fulfillment. But the ones who are like 15, 20, employee 50, who just happen to be, there based on timing, they go to bed empty because they know I was not just here to walk around and show stuff that I got. I was here to show the world, what purpose can get you, what fulfillment and dedication and commitment can get you. And when they can't, I think a part of them feels empty.
And I feel like that emptiness is because they forget about their why,
Yeah.
or maybe they never had a why.
Yeah.
And specifically you, the way you conduct yourself, the way you show up for yourself every single day when it comes to fatherhood, being a married man, being a businessman, what is your why?
That's a great question. So my why has always been my mother passed away when I was 26. Crazy. So she was 56 when I was 26. And she was maybe the last person that really unequivocally believed in that 12, 13-year-old stuttering kid. Like unequivocally. Like you can be whatever you want to be. Those kids who tease you, they don't know. My baby can do whatever she wants to do. He wants to do. And so part of what I have to do in my life is make it so she's not a liar, right? Because she would walk around. I mean, I would come home from college, and she was extroverted, opposite of me. And I would come home from college, and go to the store for her, go to the grocery store, and everyone in there knew me. Oh, you Jackie's son? Oh, you the one playing football, gonna go to the NFL? Yeah. Oh yeah, she talks about you all the time. She always brags about you. And I was always like, man, she just has this unbridled, uncontainable pride in what I'm going to become. Like who I am, she loved me unconditionally. All parents do. But she had a pride about her of what she knew I was going to become. And in her vision, because it was my vision, that was an NFL football player. So when that didn't pan out, I was crushed. Like many athletes identify with their sport. And when it's gone, it's a really hard transition. So I struggled a lot because of that phenomenon. But also I felt like I had let her down. Like she was still here then, and I didn't buy her the house I promised her. I didn't make it, to the NFL, and I felt a part of me was like, man, I let her down. So I've spent, since '98 when she passed away, I spent all this time trying to find ways to make her proud, if you will, and make her not a liar. So part of why I do things is to make sure that I have fulfilled my purpose. Now, whether or not I do that will be decided when I pass, right? But I don't want it to be for me not trying, right, forever. And I'm never going to be stale, right? I've made good money, as a CFO. I've built a good business in fitness. I've become a good speaker, but I'm never satisfied because her vision of me was not that I would be good or even great. It was that I would be phenomenal and I would change lives, right? So that's part of my why. So that's kind of the past connection. And then my father's still around, and I still want to make him. I'm a junior, right? So I'm Robert Bluford Jr. So I always talk about him. I brought him to a few of my talks, and I want people to see like what I come from, right? Who I come from. My mom's gone. I talk about her all the time, but I want to represent something that embodies who they are and what they've meant to me. So that's part of it, right? And then there's the current, right? So I have my kids, my kids, and then all the kids I touch, right? All the football players I've coached, all the kids I've trained, all the parents who have brought their children to me to work out, my neighborhood, the neighborhood kids. Any kid I talk to, I sub teach sometimes. I've talked at school. So any kid who has heard my voice, either personally, in person, or on a video, I owe it to them, right? Because right now they're going through the 13-year-old Bobby version of me, right? And I can't remember there being a 52-year-old version of Bobby coming to talk to my school. That was, I mean, I'm kind of cool still. That was kind of cool, but was so laser focused on sharing with me as a 13-year-old how important it was to be who you're supposed to be in this world. So my why from that perspective is I have to run my race, and I'll explain what that means because I did a talk about it real quickly, I promise. But I have to run my race in a way that demonstrates to everyone who sees me, and I love it because I say you're always on stage. Somebody's always watching, so it's a burden because I can't go anywhere and just relax. Right? If I'm going to my son's track meet, I'm like getting up, I'm shaving my head, I'm putting my dot card band on. It has a little scanner code to go to my website. You know, I'm prepared to talk to parents about whatever because inevitably I run into somebody who sees me, who knows me, right? Or they see the brand I demonstrate, right? I'm out there, my tank top on, I'm glistening, right? And that's on purpose.
Yeah.
Right? I use this as a vehicle to connect to people and then to teach them whatever I have to teach, right? But many kids listen to me in a way they would never listen to the same exact message from an older person who's overweight, who's not, right? So I know I have that power. So I use that in my current state to demonstrate to people how important it is to continue to manifest your own greatness, right? And then what that leaves on this world as I pass is important to me, right? For the 85 years that I'm here, or whatever it is, I want my impression to be left, right? I want my kids to talk about me in a way that resonates with their kids. I want my kids to have tools and skills that embedded in them are the skills and tools that I taught them, so that when they're teaching stuff, even when they're not directly mentioning me, they're still carrying those things I taught them about the room matters, about honoring where you're at. Like, I mean, they're already doing it. You know, my daughter, she's a strength coach for a football team in University of Hawaii. My son is, you know, he's the head of the Black Student Union at his school, and he's a leader in his own right. So they're already saying things and conducting themselves in ways that are representative of what I've been trying to teach. But I want that to be carried on for generations, right? So that's how I see it. You know, we're all in like this relay race, and we have to take the baton from those behind us, our parents, our coaches, our teachers, and we watch them and gauge how fast to go, like a relay race, right? I'm gauging how hard I have to work based on how hard Daniel's running, right? Well, in my case, my father still gets up every day at 5 a.m. to go walk and clean his house. I watched my mother, you know, clean houses and work her butt off and struggle to make ends meet. So that's what I envisioned as my parents were running toward me with the baton. So I grabbed it with an idea of what it took to run a race of integrity and honor in life. And now I've been running my race, and the beauty of it is, like, in a relay race, there's no point where you stop. So my son and my daughter are now in front of me, and there's a point when they were younger where they just watched. But for the last 10 years, they've taken some of my cues and began running. And now for the last few years, we're both sprinting full speed. I'm working my butt off. I'm trying to be great. I'm holding my son's hand as he's trying to be great. I'm guiding my daughter as she becomes a young woman. And I get to run with them for several years. But then at some point, they have to take off on their own, right? And so that's the last part of the why, is that I have to trust that they saw enough in me to understand how to run. Yeah. And I can just cheer. So that's my why. All that whole scenario of who I owe for what they did, and who I owe now for what I'm doing, and who I owe for what I want them to do.
Yeah.
Right? That becomes my why moving forward.
Yeah. And I feel like all your roles and responsibilities throughout every stage of your life has kind of made you that real life superhero. You know what I mean? Like you were talking about the
Yeah.
Peter Parker, the
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne, the Clark Kent.
Yeah.
But out of every single role that you've played when it comes to finance, fatherhood, or being a husband, entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and speaking, what makes you feel more like in that role as a superhero?
Father, 100%.
Yeah.
100%, man. Because I get to do all those things. Luckily for me, all my roles I've had, I've gotten, this is just unique to my situation probably. I mean, I think it would have been father regardless. But because of my unique situation with my children and the gifts they are, I've been able to be a football person still, right? I remember like even getting into drills with my son. Now he can whoop me, but I got to still pretend to be a football player, right? And then throughout, I've had to manage our finances in our family as a father, as a husband. So I've gotten to be a CFO, right? I've gotten to coach my kids directly. I've gotten to teach them how to coach others directly. And to be honest, all of my foundational practice as a speaker was with them. All of it. All my stories, all my fears. And what's cool about that is they have witnessed me grow. And I always tell parents, like, let your kids watch you chase greatness. You have to. So they've watched me in this journey of doing crappy YouTube videos, of speaking in front of groups and not being perfect, and just to have them be proud of you and have them be a part of your journey, all your journeys, has been great. But being a father has allowed me to be Clark Kent, for most of the time, but on the right occasions, they get to see Dad put his cape on, and go to work, and they love it, and they get to let me be a superhero in their eyes too, which is cool, but probably limited in time before they have their own superheroes. But for now, that's 100% being a father.
Yeah. And honestly, when you were, obviously you gained all that confidence and that stutter pretty much went away.
Yeah.
But did it take time for you to accumulate this confidence when it comes to speaking? Because every layer of foundation that you did, there's a certain confidence, but speaking and public speaking is completely different.
No, yeah, it is.
Right?
It is. I think the difference was, I still stutter, by the way.
Yeah.
But more often I do what's called cluttering, where I talk fast. And that was, it's a protective mechanism that stutterers sometimes do. And what it does, real quickly, is allows you to say something quickly, too quickly, right? And then go back and restate it slowly without feeling weird about it.
Yeah.
Rather than be caught up in and have to say something really slowly. You say it fast, too fast, and then you go back if you want to and you say it slowly. So it's a mechanism to allow you to speak slowly without feeling weird. So I developed that. So I went to a speech pathologist early on. Because again, I've always wanted to be better at stuff. I knew I was afraid to speak. I would drop classes in college that had speaking as part of the grade. That's odd, right? Because people are like, really, you, Coach Bobby? I would look at the syllabus. 40% of your grade is going to be end of semester oral presentation to the class. Oh, I'm dropping that. I'm dropping that tomorrow, right? But it was a fear. So I went to MBA school, got over it a little bit, right? But I was still fearful because by then I had finished college. So I knew I wasn't dumb. I think the problem is you equate stuttering with being dumb. Not you, but people, the person who stutters thinks the world sees them as being dumb, right? And when you're black and when you're like kind of urban, you have earrings, you automatically assume people see you a certain way. So it exacerbates things. So I always knew I wanted to be better at it, right? So once I finished my undergrad at UC Davis, which is a good school, I felt better immediately, right? And then when I got into Santa Clara, I felt even better. I did well on the GMAT, the test to get in. I was around people who were really smart. So I inherited some of that confidence from the room I was in. Like, these guys are smart. I'm in here, so I can't be dumb. But then I said, okay, now I'm gonna purposely work on this fear, and this it's partly fear, partly a real thing, right? So I found a speech therapist, a pathologist, and I went to her. And I've always been pretty good at formal situations. So if I sit down with you and it's formal, I can normally either hide it very well or don't stutter at all. It's weird. So in our meetings, I think we had like 3 or 4 meetings. She gave me exercises to do. But for the most part, she was like, "You don't really have a problem with stuttering, but because you're so fearful of it, I think you need to see a therapist." So I went to a therapist, and which was cool because I saw her for about 3 or 4 years, and it was mainly around like the stress of my work. I was a controller by then, going to school, and it was just uh, yeah, it was very helpful, beyond the stuttering part. So I began to just harness it better and get more confidence around the fact that I could hide it, right, for lack of a better word, right? I could go long stints without having it be a problem. So I knew I could go into a school or go on a this is before podcast, but go on a YouTube video and do well. But what made my confidence soar, like to a point where now it's like, and I still have some reluctance, but almost none, was I went to a speaking coach, I guess you can call him. So Bo Eason is a guy in the space who speaks. He trains speakers now. He has a workshop. He has a program, mastermind program. But he went to UC Davis as well and played football. So I knew of him because he was drafted, one of the few guys who were drafted, and a mutual friend, after seeing my videos, we were talking and said, do you know Bo Eason? So long story short is his whole teaching is about personal story and about how few speakers tap into their story and use vulnerability, use their inherent abilities, whatever they are, to be passionate, to embody sexuality, whatever your powers are. Very few of us have learned or been taught that you can use that in a formal setting. We all learned, or many of us learned, that speakers had to do this. Never say never do this. All these rules, right? And he is not about that. He's like, get up there, be vulnerable, be honest, connect with the audience. If you do that, how you sound, how you speak, how you articulate doesn't matter. If your message is precise enough and you connect, how it's delivered is not important. So once I learned that and practiced that, I saw him for about a year. It just soared because now I began to just be myself and just not be afraid of any of it, of stuttering, of being black, of being buff, of any of it. And when you couple that with the fact that I'm a nerd and meticulous about preparation and about studying and about seeing other speakers and taking from this speaker and that speaker what he or she does well and what they don't do well, when you add the study element to the vulnerability and honest story element, then you walk into everywhere you go and it's just like, man, I can just be myself, right? I've done the work, I've studied, I've worked, and once you do more of them, I've done enough talks, and I could just be myself. And then you're confident. You're still humble, right? You don't go in there with an arrogance, but you're not fearful of of being wrong. You're not fearful of not being accepted for who you are, because who you are is who you are. And so I still get nervous, which is, I got nervous before every football game. I played 13 years. So I don't see that as not being confident. I see it as being ready, right? As a cheetah about to attack prey, and you just kind of go slow, and you get your heartbeat under wraps. But my confidence from doing that has just been skyrocketed. So I recommend this, if you Google Bo Eason and just like watch some of his videos, he changed how I look at speaking. So it's not like it's still formal to me, but it's connection and storytelling.
I have two more questions for you, my man. All right.
All right.
So this is High Value Discussions hosted by me, but let's say this is High Value Discussions hosted by Bobby Bluford.
Yeah.
If this was your podcast, what would you ask me?
Got you. So I was humbled that you reached out to me, and I followed your stuff. I watched your videos. I stalked you a little bit, and I tried to put myself back into the shoes of a person born in 1995 before I realized. And I'm curious how, because it's hard. What I teach people, young people, is you have to be okay separating yourself from the masses, right? And carve out your brand. And if you're going to be great, that brand is going to be about things that are not accepted or appreciated as a 15, 16, 19, 20, 22-year-old. Studying, going to bed early, eating right, working out, minimizing partying, minimizing sleeping in, minimizing eating junk food. So I've taught my children to carve out your brand as early as possible, solidify it, and then those who respect it will become your friends and part of your room. Yeah. So my question is, you have done that, right? Obviously, you've done that. I just met you, so I didn't teach it to you, right? And maybe you didn't even know you were doing that. Yeah. But how do you navigate that? How have you done that? And how do you think, why and how do you think you've done that and navigated it? And how will you continue to do that going forward?
Yeah, I remember in the beginning of our conversation where you said that you've studied a lot of people. I did that throughout my whole years as an athlete, because I've studied the successful ones and I've studied the ones who failed. And I always kind of took mental notes on why they failed. And, they got caught up in the success, like, oh, let's go to the clubs, let's go to the girls, let's go drink and drive. So right. There was just a lot of mental notes that I didn't want to do. And growing up personally, I did see a lot of men that I don't look up to. Mm-hmm. So what I wanted to do is be the complete opposite of that. And I still carry that principle to this day. And I don't forget those moments. And I still see that, where I see men in their 40s or their 50s and still making the wrong decisions when right. It comes to their wives, when it comes to their children, their work, their business, etc. And those are just mental notes for me, man. And I'm blessed to be surrounded by that, because that's all just learning for me. Mm-hmm. I'm just like how we were talking about earlier, being curious. I'm just curious on everywhere I go. And I've played too much. Like, I'm not saying I was this big party guy. I'm not saying I've slept with so many women, so on and so forth, but I did waste a lot of time when I was young, and I don't want to waste time anymore. I really, really don't. Cause I know where that leads to. And I know that makes me kind of like a loner. Yeah. And I'm okay with that. Right. I'm okay with that because I know what it takes to be great, because I've seen it. And I've seen it firsthand from studying. I've seen it hands from personally people I've shaken hands with. But honestly, man, I'm married to this. Like that, this is what I'm married to. Like I don't have children yet. I don't have a wife yet, but I can't wait for those days. But I am married to this game. I'm married to this game of self-improvement. I'm married to this game of business, entrepreneurship. I am married to this game, and I love it every single day, brother. So honestly, that's how I kind of calculated it. Right. And enhancing it and sculpting it.
Right.
And that's the thing that I told, I was talking to like a 55-year-old man the other day, and he's always talking about his physique. He wants to look better. And I was like, look, brother, like you look good. Don't get me wrong. You look phenomenal. I don't think you're ever going to look your best.
Right.
I think we'll never also have it figured out. And I think that's the best thing about this life too. Because you, my friend,
Totally
you're
agree.
jacked. You're jacked city.
Appreciate that.
But imagine if you could get more shape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
why you continues to work out, because you're constantly sculpting and constantly improving it.
Right.
It's the same thing with me too. Just because I have all these books around me doesn't mean I know everything. No, I have all these books around me because I want to learn. Why do I go to the gym all the time? Is because I want to make me better. Why do I put myself in challenging conversations? Because I want to grow this. I am not interested in going to a club. I am not interested in bringing a woman every single weekend to my bedroom.
Right.
I want only value around my life. That is it. If it is not valuable, scram.
Right.
Get it away from me. So, but that has made me not very likable.
Yeah. And that was the question. Like, how do you arm yourself against? Like, part of it is you have to be okay with not being liked.
And I'm
right?
okay with that.
Yeah,
you know why?
exactly.
Because, man, I am surrounded by beautiful people. I have God by my side. I have my mother. I have my siblings. I have my cousins. I got a beautiful circle, brother. So honestly, I don't wake up every day thinking, man, I can't wait to be liked today.
Right.
No, it's not about that, man. I got the best circle possible. And that's why I love going home. That's why I love I'm breathing, brother. Like, come on. Like, God gave me this ability to just show up every single day and love on my family, give me an uncommon energy and drive. It's like, man, I am grateful. So I don't even think about it that way.
No,
if
I get
it's,
it. Yeah,
if it's
right.
you don't like me, that's fine.
Yeah,
But this is the thing too. If I ride with you, I'm fully in with you, man. I'm all in. But yeah, that's I would say that's kind of how I calculated it.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, and you can answer this too, is the hard part is you have to. Well, I imagine I'll ask you: is the hard part, because I struggle with this, is the hard part because when you're confident, you're trying to make an impact in the world, like I am. So you want everyone to hear your message because you believe it's valuable. Like, why would I teach stuff that I didn't think was valuable?
Yeah.
And if I have valuable stuff to give, why wouldn't I offer it to everybody? Yeah. So we're offering what we think we know to the world, and we're trying to do it from a place of love and not arrogance. Like, I know everything about fitness. No, I think I know how to help you.
Yeah.
And you're walking around and you're confused. I want to help you. How do you separate that from the feeling that people who aren't ready to receive that perceive you as being overly perfect, overly perfect? Like, oh, Daniel just wants to go home. Oh, Daniel doesn't drink. Oh, Daniel, because it happens, right? And they'll do it oftentimes in a loving, funny way,
like a jab.
Yeah,
like a teasing jab.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you think you're this and
exactly.
that. Exactly.
So there's situations you can go home, but sometimes you're kind of stuck places. Like, I went to my son went to graduation, so his prom, and then we met afterwards. And I'm not good at that stuff. I want to do more of it because my wife deserves to get out more.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I don't want to eat carbs, I don't want to eat carbs. If I don't want to drink, I don't drink.
Yeah.
I don't want to drink. So when people who don't know me, hey, you want to drink? I don't drink. Then you feel like you're being arrogant, or you're being like judging. I'm not judging. All my boys drink and smoke weed. I ain't tripping off of that.
Yeah.
That don't bother me. But I shouldn't feel bad. My favorite saying was a long time ago to my son's Pop Warner parents. I said, look, I put it on Facebook. I was so mad. I went on social media. I said, look, I really don't. I don't judge you for wanting to drink or overeat, indulge, or go to happy hour, or sleep in. I don't judge you for that.
Yeah.
Don't judge me if I don't.
Yeah.
So how do you? And I know you face it.
I always say this, like, the discipline triggers the undisciplined.
I like
that.
I like
so
that.
For me, I've always saw where the men do get drunk, then they have words to say.
Right.
And I'm just
That's
like,
true.
oh, that's interesting. I didn't know you were thinking of me like
exactly,
that.
right?
And it does sting because, say, if it is a family member, it's like, dang, man, like I thought
Like,
this is
really?
all love and this is all genuine. That's where I come out of,
Right.
but they may not.
Right.
And honestly, brother, I can only control what I can control. And like, I love studying the Stoics because they preach that a lot.
it, yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
if I have no control over it, like I'll say this is an example. I remember there was a gathering here in this house,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll say one of my uncles got pretty intoxicated.
Yeah.
And going back to that term again, the discipline triggered the undisciplined. So when he got intoxicated, that was his time to actually get in my face.
Oh my goodness.
And it was funny. It was during this hallway right through here.
Oh my goodness.
And I remember everybody was going to sleep. All my cousins were staying over. It's like, oh, they're in this bedroom, so on and so forth. And they were all staring outside their rooms because we were face to face.
Oh my gosh.
But I wasn't saying a word
Right.
while he was in my face, forehead to forehead, preaching, blah, 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 blah,
You
blah.
think you're all, yeah.
Yeah, so on and so forth. And I was just behind my hands behind my back, just ready. Just because that's the person that I am, just ready, whenever.
Yeah.
And then his wife pushing him away, like, let's go, honey, let's go home, and this and that. And I kind of give him that look like, brother,
Yeah.
if I really wanted to get to you,
Yeah, exactly.
ain't no woman, no man, no nothing is going to get me from
Right,
getting to you.
Right.
And then my cousins were kind of pulling me aside, like, how come you didn't even talk back? I was like, I don't need to. I was like, I didn't even get to speak and I already triggered the man.
Yeah.
You know, me just staring at him, it's already like killing him inside. So I have no control over that, brother. It sucks, but nothing
Yeah.
that I can do.
Yeah.
Honestly, why is it so triggering for people when you're improving yourself? Because
Yeah,
all
I
I
don't know.
want the
It's-
people around me is to be great.
Yeah.
That's it.
Me too.
If I know some
Yeah.
people, if I can give game to somebody and it's going to
And I
improve
will
their
give game
stock,
to you
yeah.
if you ask. Yeah, exactly.
But
yeah.
if it increases their stock, why am I looked at so
Yeah.
negatively? You
Right.
know what I mean?
I
Like,
totally agree.
oh man, it's a weird
No, it's hard.
balance.
It's
It's a
hard.
weird one.
Yeah, it's hard, man. But you have to arm young people with the knowledge that that's going to happen, and be ready for it and face it. Have humility. I like your approach. You can't control it. I prefer. I would prefer if I was able to be more stoic in those moments. I tend to react too much. Either directly or emotionally later, like, man, why don't they like me? What did I do wrong?
Well, I also have that principle too, where it's like, I'll let you disrespect me once, but
Yeah,
you'll never
not
do it
twice.
twice.
Yeah, yeah.
You'll never do it twice.
Yeah.
And I kind of have to remind that to me because I don't approach myself as like this aggressive, tough guy.
Right.
I don't like to. Just because I'm a former professional fighter doesn't mean I want to
Right,
present myself
exactly.
that way.
Yeah.
But if
Right.
you forget, I don't mind
If you-
reminding you.
Yeah, I'll remind you. I like that. I love it.
So my brother, my very, very last question
Gotcha.
to you. You speak to so many people, you guide so many people, especially young people. But if there was one specific individual scratching and clawing for answers, pulling on your shirt, asking for the right guidance, what is the one thing that you would want to pass down to him?
My parting message to everybody, I think if you live your life by honoring the hours that you are on this earth, that most of what you want takes care of itself, right? And that means, like, be where your feet are, be purposeful in your actions, and understand, appreciate, and adhere to the purpose that you know is inside of your heart. If you honor that every single day, the messages and the tactics and tools, they will come to you, but not if you're not in a chair honoring it.
Beautiful. Brother, are there any closing statements you'd like to give for the podcast?
I'd love it, man. I love the message you're preaching, Daniel. I love the value that you're bringing. I'm honored to be one of the people you saw fit and worthy to be on, and I can't wait till the next time.
Please, let's do this again, my brother.
sir.
All right, blessings. Hey, man, it was an honor meeting you. It was an honor speaking with you. And brother, thank you so much for the value you gave today. Appreciate you. Thank you all for tuning in to today's episode. If you got a lot of value out of this, please do me a favor and support our channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Make sure to hit that follow button on Spotify to stay updated with our latest episodes. And if you are listening on Apple Podcast, I would greatly appreciate it if you would leave a 5-star rating, followed by it with a review. Again, thank you all for the support. Stay loving, stay hungry, and stay excellent.